Granvir is a game that I've been following for a very long time. How long? Well, as far back as August 13th, 2024, when Gigatank 3000 rather generously sent me a review key via the most personal form of communication possible for a millennial man in his late 30s, email. Since then, a lot has happened, which has obviously affected this channel, so 2025 being what it was for me, everything has been on the back burner as I rebuild and restore just about everything. That being said, I played the game on and off over the last year and had always planned on making a video about it. That is, always assuming the release date wasn't as far out as it ended up being. Now though, looking back, the bajillion updates that came and went over the last year make a whole lot more sense in context. Granvir is something that has been and continues to be worked on throughout its development. Seriously, there are a lot of hopes pinned on this one. There was even a Steam Deck giveaway tied to the game's release. Yes, I entered and no, I did not win, but I do have a Steam Deck. So if anything I say here sounds good over the course of this video and you want to support an indie developer who has clearly been working their proverbial ass off creating something that's essentially a niche within a niche, Mechs, well, you know what to do. On the other hand, if you don't agree with anything I say here and think I'm totally wrong in any criticism I make, that's another good reason to pick up a copy as well. Now, there's a special reason why Granvir has been a difficult video for me to put out. It comes down to the fact that I'm absolutely terrible at playing it. It took me longer than I'd have liked to get through the first campaign on normal difficulty, only to realize that this is literally about 25% of the overall content. At least in terms of parts and mech customization. Granvir has so much variation when it comes to parts that I'm likely going to accidentally leave something out in this video, or there's going to be some amazing build I never managed to obtain in my many playthroughs. In fact, it's pretty much inevitable at this point, as there's so much packed into something that admittedly looks a little bit like a Roblox experience at times. Sorry, but thankfully it's not that. There will be no adolescent children or early teens shouting at each other within digital worlds designed to prey upon the wallets of adult parents. You know, predatory monetization practices and all. Maybe some other predatory things too, from what others are saying. Granvir is actually made for big boys, and it takes roguelite difficulty expectations to roguelike levels. All the abilities and upgrades you usually obtain in such games are replaced by actual pieces of equipment that can make an enormous difference at times. You're essentially put into a position where trying new things is pretty much the only way to survive, with the only real choice being whether you focus on melee or ranged attacks. What your mech ends up being as you progress is all down to luck and chance, or clever use of the hours and credits you spend between missions to hopefully get something that works. However, don't be surprised when you reach a final mission and your arms get blown off because, as I said, Granvir is a hard game. We're talking about hours committed to a build, trying to make it through a particular scenario, only to have all your progress destroyed as soon as you find yourself outgunned. Expect this to happen quite a bit, as agitating the powers at play often has them literally carpet bombing your position in no time at all. Yes, within moments, that fun you're having, destroying rival mechs, stomping foolish humans, and ransacking everything you can, comes with serious consequences. Thankfully, a few bones are thrown to us dogs, and you begin the next run with a choice of 2 parts you've collected. But that's assuming the really nice shocky sword and complementary chest piece you wanted to keep aren't both destroyed after their durability ratings drop to 0. Again, this isn't Roblox, guys. Of course, there are some actual problems too, which is inevitable when one person is making a game, even if certain elements are outsourced. The bigger a project gets, the more there is to manage and worry about, and some issues only become noticeable once they're actual problems. That being said, none of my issues with Granvir have anything to do with its technical performance. It's an extremely solid experience that's still technically in its infancy. So, admittedly, a little leeway is going to be given here. Roblox jokes aside though, the game is actually smartly designed from a graphical standpoint. Its blocky, simplistic look allows the parts to fit together seamlessly without any visual or functional issues. However, for some players, that aesthetic might be an immediate turnoff. The look of this game absolutely screams true indie, as in an actual one-person project rather than something backed by a studio with thousands to spend on polish and promotion. Some people will likely see that and assume it's just another one of those low-effort, simplistic shovelware titles floating around online these days. It isn't that, not by a long stretch. Once the game gets rolling, it's actually quite charming. That being said, I do find certain aspects of the animations undercooked. I love slamming rivals with huge swords that have both horizontal and vertical attack modes, that was a nice touch, or blasting them apart with two-handed shotguns, heavy artillery, and missile fire. But the jump and dash animations don't quite feel right, and dashing itself lacks a sense of power. In some cases, you can get a continuous dash for certain leg models, which is the only real exception. Otherwise, I'd say there just aren't enough maps here. The game features several campaigns that vary in length and difficulty, but I wouldn't call the maps within them particularly diverse. It doesn't take long before you've seen every piece of terrain and every variation of an area. Within about 2 to 3 hours, you'll have experienced nearly everything the game currently offers in terms of environments. But given the ongoing development pace, that's something that could very well improve in future updates. This is a small game made by a single developer, again with some outsourced help, and it should be viewed through that lens. Even so, it stands out as something special for anyone looking for a fresh take on the roguelite formula. Of course, it has mechs, which is already a massive win, but its approach to the genre feels generally refreshing and highly replayable. And if you're looking for a rating, I'll give it a 4 burgers out of 19 chicken wings. Good luck. Play this game.